Hello and welcome to World Insight on CCTV News. I'm Tian Wei in Hangzhou. Coming up on today's G20 special, Chinese President Xi Jinping outlines the achievements of the 2016 G20 Summit as it draws to a close in Hangzhou. And Canada recently announced its plan to join the AIIB. We speak exclusively about this to Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, as well as China-Canada relations. We also discuss the move with the AIIB president. How does he see the bank developing in the future? 2016 Hangzhou G20 Summit has wrapped up on Monday after 2 days of meetings. The world economy come from edge of financial crisis 8 years ago to a crucial juncture now. Leaders of the world's 20 major economies are facing challenges like the rise of protectionism, financial risks, and also aging populations. Leaders vow at this year's summit to work together on long-term global governance. President Xi Jinping offered Chinese remedies for world economy. He also delivered a speech on the achievements of the summit earlier today. Let's take a look.
The leaders' communique adopted at the G20 Hangzhou Summit has made clearer the direction, goals and measures for G20 cooperation. It contains the Hangzhou Consensus on World Economic Growth, featuring vision, integration, openness, and inclusiveness.
From the bilateral meetings on the sidelines, which made headlines, to the impressive historical beauty of host city Hangzhou, here's a brief wrap-up of the event's highlights.
The spectacular opening gala of the G20 Summit in Hangzhou may have impressed the world, but when it comes down to serious business, world leaders still face daunting challenges. The world's recovery remains weak after the 2008 financial crisis, with the global jobless rate almost reaching 6%. Chinese President Xi Jinping urged the G20 members to resist protectionism and foster innovation to boost growth. He said the global economy can hardly recover without open trade and coordinated macroeconomic policies among the G20 members.
I think China has confidence in its economy. It's a great role model for Brazil and other countries facing an economic recovery. The G20 Hangzhou Summit presented great opportunities for others to learn from China.
Outside the summit, some notable meetings also grabbed headlines. President Xi met with his U.S. counterpart Barack Obama. Disagreements remain on thorny issues like the South China Sea, but one widely appreciated consensus was their climate change agreement. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon received the two countries' instruments for joining the Paris Agreement.
The actions taken by early ratifiers like China and United States, those are two biggest emitters. I think these are far-reaching, visionary. They are working for the people. They are working for the planet Earth. The Sustainable Development Goals of climate change are tightly interlinked.
President Xi also met with South Korean President Park Geun-hye, reiterating China's objection to the U.S.'s deployment of an anti-missile defense system in South Korea. Xi warned her that tensions may escalate on all sides if the issue is not handled well. G20 economies account for 2/3 of the world's population and over 80% of global GDP and trade. Is widely seen as the most effective platform for global governance.
Prime Minister of Canada Justin Trudeau is paying his first ever official visit to China from August the 30th to September the 6th. Besides Hangzhou, Trudeau's tour also includes stops in Beijing, Shanghai, and Hong Kong. We earlier sat down in Hangzhou with Justin Trudeau for an exclusive interview. He shares his views on Canada joining the Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank, cooperation agreements reached in his trip, and the future of China-Canada ties. But first, take a look at the background of China-Canada relations.
Historic ties. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is paying a visit to China to strengthen relations between China and Canada and to attend the Group of 20 Summit. Chinese President Xi Jinping met with Trudeau in Beijing. President Xi welcomed more bilateral high-level exchanges between the countries, as well as better communication and coordination. Trudeau said Canada is willing to cooperate to strengthen economic and financial ties. Canada and China established diplomatic relations during the term of former Canadian Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau, Justin's father. Chinese media refer to Pierre as an old friend of China. Trudeau said that on this trip he would strive for a closer, more balanced relationship between Canada and China, which can unlock the untapped potential in commercial ties. He also said his trip would advance important issues like good governance, the rule of law and the environment. Justin Trudeau brought his daughter on this trip to China. He said he hoped to pass along friendship and the openness towards China not only to his own children, but also to future generations of Canadians.
Youngest state leader, youngest national leader. What is it like? What kind of plan do you have for your country?
Well, I think one of the things that is exciting for me is I do feel part of a new generation of leaders that are drawing on a new generation of citizen voices. We have young people who are stepping up, being more interested in the world, taking strong stands on things like equality and diversity, and interested in traveling the world and being part of it. And I feel like I'm part of a generation that is reflecting those values.
What is going on with the AIIB? In fact, your country, Canada, has applied for AIIB. How does that work, and why it becomes the first North American country?
Well, Canada has already a strong presence in building infrastructure in China, whether it's housing or nuclear plants or trains. Canada is building high-quality infrastructure in China, across Asia, around the world. So we come with a significant amount of expertise. But being able to join in this excellent initiative of the AIIB that China is leading on, that is going to create opportunities not just for citizens in China, but for citizens across Asia to get access to good infrastructure. I mean, we know investments in infrastructure create good jobs in the short term, but lead to productivity gains and growth in the long term. And that's something that's really important.
And you're, of course, going on with the Canadian tradition of having very good relations with China. But tell me about this relation. Even though the countries are good trade partners with one another, the trade volume is still slow.
Indeed. There's a lot of work to do. I think not just the economic opportunity. I mean, we signed a deal with Alibaba for a brand new Canada Pavilion, which I hope is going to give access to the hundreds of millions of middle class in China, great quality Canadian products, but also understanding that the ties that go beyond economics, people to people, tourism ties, the families that have family members on either side, the cultural ties. There is so much that we can draw on from each other, so much we can challenge ourselves with each other to grow and to improve, that I'm excited about it.
What do you think China and Canada can do together? And now you're joining the G20 Summit. How would you judge whether the summit is a successful one or not?
Well, first of all, I think it's a great success that China is hosting the G20. When Canada was very involved in creating the G20 back in the 1990s, one of the reasons for the fact that we needed a G20 and not just a G7 and others was because we had to have China involved in the discussions around the global economy. So this is a great thing. And the fact that the priorities that President Xi has put forward around inclusive growth, around innovation, around investment in the future, around opportunities for everyone, these are things that are deeply important to Canada as well. So I'm very pleased that we're going to be able to amplify that message that you can't cut your way to growth. You have to believe in the future and invest in the future. You have to create the kind of world in which people will have chances to succeed. And what China has been able to do over the past few decades of lifting 700 million people out of poverty, of adding 300 million people to the global middle class, I mean, this is extraordinary. But there's always more work to do, and there's always challenges that come with that. And how we get together and share our solutions and challenge each other and grow through close relationships, well, that's what the world is supposed to have more of, and that's what the G20 is all about.
He's playful. He can balance a baby with one hand. He's a great dancer and a boxer. He's 45-year-old Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, the second youngest to ever hold the office. Trudeau has been involved in politics since 2008. He won the leadership of the Liberal Party in April 2013 and went on to lead his party to victory in the 2015 federal election. The third-placed Liberals moved from 36 seats to 184 seats, which is the largest ever numerical increase by a party in a Canadian election. Polls keep showing high support for Trudeau since he was sworn into office about 10 months ago, and he's grabbed headlines with his bold views on many issues, from feminism to climate change.
Canada is back.
Forbes ranks Trudeau as the 69th most powerful person in the world, and Time included him in a list of the 100 most influential people in the world.
Mr. Prime Minister, this is already your fourth time, and this is the first time as Prime Minister. But tell me about the last 3 times when we were in China, because those were very interesting experiences.
Yeah, my first visit, I was just a little older than my daughter is now, who I'm traveling with on this trip. I was with my father when he was Prime Minister, and we were received in Beijing to huge banquets, and it was a wonderful opportunity. Then I came back a few years later with him when he had finished politics, and I was just, we were traveling as tourists, but my father, of course, was regarded as a respected elder and given wonderful welcome and support everywhere we went. And then when I was in my mid-20s, I came back backpacking, just on my own with a couple of friends.
Where did you go?
Well, we came into Beijing by traveling from train from Moscow, and then we worked our way down. We went to Hangzhou, we went to Taishan, we went to all sorts of beautiful places. When we got to Shanghai, we were challenged because we were traveling during around New Year's, and everyone was traveling to see their families, so all the trains were booked, all the planes were booked. We ended up having to take a slow boat from Shanghai to Guangzhou in Hong Kong. It was a wonderful trip.
You got a real taste of China. 1.4 billion people over there. And of course, you have graduated from just a backpacker to the Prime Minister. When people look at your political track record, they're extremely impressed by your way of promoting the youth, and also your way of gearing up enthusiasm among the youth about politics. How did that work? What is your secretive remedy?
Well, I think the first thing is young people get a bad reputation for being disconnected or cynical or not caring about politics, when the fact is, what I find is young people care deeply about their communities, about their future. They just get frustrated when they don't have ways of making their voices heard or ways of being part of shaping their community's future or their country and their world's future. So what I really realized was drawing young people into the political process was a powerful way of getting them to feel connected with their country and contribute to it. But it's also a really important way, particularly in places like Canada, where the pace of political change and navel-gazing, looking inwards is so tempting. It challenges you to take a more long-term view. You have to, if you're listening and talking to young people, you have to think about the future 20, 30, 50 years in the future. And I think bringing a more long-term vision to Western democracies is something I'm glad to do.
But there are a lot of cynical views about what the futures might be, as you have just illustrated, Mr. Prime Minister. And now that's why there's so much populism. There's so much anti-globalization. There's cynicism about politics worldwide. What do you make of this trend? Is it like to continue? With leaders like you, is that really like to change the picture?
Well, I think we have to recognize the reality first. The reality is there's a lot of people around the world who are worried that globalization, that trade, that economic growth hasn't been working for them. The middle class in a lot of countries, like Canada and other Western countries, has sort of flatlined, and there isn't a sense of growth there. So there's frustration. And when you get worried and frustrated, cynical politicians can try and exploit the fear and the anger, and then you get Brexit, and you get negative fears about the international community as a way of gaining power. What I think leadership needs to be, and what I'm trying to do, is you recognize people's worries and anxieties, and then you point out that no, we can create inclusive growth. We can create opportunities for the middle class and those working hard to join it. Trade brings jobs and opportunities. The new Canada Pavilion in Alibaba is going to give opportunities for small businesses across the country to sell great products to China. Trade can be very good. We just have to make that positive argument, and I think that's what people want
Arguments
to hear.
could be easy to make, and yet when it comes to real actions and real beliefs, it could be very challenging, particularly when you have politics that has been in gridlocks for quite some time.
Yes, but at the same time, I mean, we're facing similar challenges on economic growth in Canada that elsewhere are, even more a little bit because we were so reliant on natural resources and oil prices, for example. But that's where knowing that we have to invest in innovation, in education, in infrastructure, in opportunities for people to succeed there are investments you have to make in the short term that don't necessarily give payoffs right away, but that are setting us on the right track. And if you demonstrate the right kind of leadership, people are willing to say, yes, we're going in the right direction and we're confident about the future, and that's what I'm building on.
Mr. Prime Minister, another thing about you many are extremely interested in is why you claim yourself to be a feminist.
Well, I think that's more of a recognition and a reflection of the reality of how young people see the world right now. To be a feminist, you just have to recognize that women should have the same opportunities as men, and that there's still a lot of work to do to get there. If you can say yes to both those things, well, congratulations, you're a feminist. And for me, it's important for men.
You're not afraid of that title. You're extremely proud of it.
No, I'm extremely proud of it, and I think more men should be open about saying they're feminists, because it's not just about women saying we need more opportunities. It should be smart men saying, yes, women need more opportunities. I had a great conversation with Jack Ma just yesterday about the importance of getting more women into the workforce, getting more women into positions of leadership. Not because it's just a moral or right thing to do, but because it's better for success, to have multiple points of view. It's better for growth. It's better for everyone.
That's true. What it would be like when your daughter, in the age when you were first traveled to China, would be for her when she grows up?
For me, a lot of people say, oh, it must be so hard to be a young father while you're a politician because you're traveling so much, I work so hard. And I say, yes, but I'm not in politics in spite of the fact that I have kids. I'm in politics because I have kids, because I know that I can do things that will make her world and all young people's world better by taking the right decisions.
You are probably the youngest state leader among all the G20 economies, I guess, this time attending the summit, when it comes to age, but not necessarily political experiences.
You're very kind.
What does it take for politicians, do you think, to be successful, to be convincing, to be able to interact with the real people?
Well, one of the challenges of politics is it gets very, very easy to get closed off from ordinary citizens, to be surrounded by very smart people who give you solutions, and you find yourself cut off from everyday people and the challenges they live every day. You think about politics all the time. No ordinary person thinks about politics all the time. They think about their jobs, they think about their family, they think about... So for me, staying connected with people by having regular conversations, by using social media, by being open to walking down the street as much as you can.
Yeah, I saw your photo. First year when you were attending the UN conference, you were doing a yoga pose on the table. Of course, there are so many people talking about that, but what kind of message do you really want to convey through those? And also holding all those little panda cups in a way.
I think one of the things that is important about leadership is that you be authentic, that you be real, that you be the person you are. I am someone who, I love to do physical things. I love to, meet people. I love to connect. I love animals. And for me to share who I am, with the people that I have the responsibility to serve, so they feel that they know me and they know my priorities, keeps me closer to them and keeps me better able to understand what they need in terms of leadership.
So are we going to have more fun photos in the future?
I certainly hope so, because I'd hate to suddenly become boring and disconnected.
That's the least thing you are.
You're
Mr. Prime
very
Minister, it's such a pleasure to have you. All the best.
Thank you
so
very
much.
Appreciate it.
Welcome back. The Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank is also participating in this year's G20 Summit, along with other international organizations like the World Bank. The international financial institution known as AIIB supports infrastructure construction that will boost global growth. The Young Development Bank continues to grow. Canada has applied to join, and over 20 other countries wait for membership. Earlier, I sat down for an interview with the AIIB President, Mr. Jin Lichuan, to talk about Canada's participation and also the future of the organization, AIIB.
Striking a delicate balance. By submitting its application to join the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, key US ally Canada could become the first North American member. The AIIB is a multilateral development bank launched to support the building of infrastructure in the Asia-Pacific region. Its modus operandi will be lean, clean and green. 57 countries already joined the AIIB last year as founding members. The AIIB has signed non-binding memoranda of understandings with the Asian Development Bank, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, and the European Investment Bank. This has opened the door for future cooperation. The AIIB approved its first 4 loans totaling $509 million 6 months after starting operations. 3 of the loans are co-financed by other multilateral development banks.
President Jin Lichuan from AIIB, welcome to CCTV News.
Thank you very much.
Earlier, I had an interview with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. He was talking about Canada as the first North American country to apply to join AIIB. He said there are still many other projects that his country can work on with China on infrastructure. What is your response?
I talked to him briefly yesterday, and he said, I'm so delighted to join AIIB. And I said, we are very, very happy and very much honored to have Canada as a new member. A new member with about more than 20 other countries waiting to join the bank. And we will try to complete the membership process by the end of this year.
What is the membership process like?
You see, by Articles of Agreement, the applicants must register before the end of September. And then we would have the Board of Governors to approve the applicants as new members if they meet all the requirements. So we think with Canada's participation, AIIB will be further strengthened in its efforts to promote infrastructure development in its member countries.
But Mr. Jin, President Jin, what do you think it might mean for the other 2 North American countries?
Our position has been consistent. If the countries want to join the AIIB, particularly the systemically significant economies, certainly that would be a great plus to our institution. As you know, those countries have experience in state governance. They can provide professionals of high caliber to join the bank. And on the board, they can help enhance the governance of this institution. So the importance does not rest with the financial resources, but more important, to strengthen the governance of this institution.
You're suggesting, it seems to me, President Jin, that whoever is not joining AIIB is having a pity because their voice will not be heard.
I think you have read too much into my points. I'm saying that AIIB is willing to work with all of the countries in this world. For some reason, some countries are not members or not members yet, but we still have lots of opportunities of working together. Because the bank is transparent, is open, we practice international competitive bidding, and we have global recruitment
I see.
policies. So a country could not be a member, but still participating in the international competitive bidding. Their companies can be involved in the infrastructure investment, and their nationals can join our bank as professionals.
The infrastructure that will have a commercial future is certainly going to be very different from only government-provided funding. So what do you make of the so-called good infrastructure?
Infrastructure projects can only be effective and productive when they are part of the national development program. Even more so if they are part of the regional development program. You can build a road, you can build a port, but you have to think about the supporting role by other infrastructure projects. A port cannot be effective without linkage by railway, by road, and power plant must be supported by the transmission lines. That is why when we look at the feasibility or viability of an infrastructure project, we have looked at the national development program, we have to look at the sequence of the development in infrastructure and other areas. You talk about the well-funded infrastructure. Sometimes an infrastructure project would be probably running out of resources because it's normally has a long gestation period, which is very, very big in its demand for resources. So that's why we can cooperate with other MDBs, multilateral development institutions, to help the developing countries achieve the good results.
What is the relations between the idea and the implementation as such as organization as AIIB and also OBOR, One Belt, One Road? What exactly, how they interact with one another?
These two initiatives are related, of course, but they are different. AIIB is not the same as One Belt, One Road. One Belt, One Road is a program, is an initiative to promote infrastructure development in the countries along those geographical areas. AIIB is a multilateral development institution. We have quite a number of the founding members out of 57 who are on the geographical area. So it's all right for us to support the infrastructure of all those countries. For instance, maritime Silk Road, and also railways, roads on the vast Eurasian continent. But we have to take care of the countries which are not along the geographic.
So OBOR is not your priority?
No, I cannot say not our priority. It's part of our priority. But we have to take care of the countries which are not along the One Belt, One Road.
How projects are being decided?
The projects would be proposed to AIIB by the governments, by the private sector, or we will reach out to the countries, to the private sector for any possible projects. So it's a two-way traffic. And sometimes you see one project can lead to the initiation of another one.
Of course, but who will make the final decision as to how the money will be spent and whether the money is being spent well?
The final decision actually should be made by all of the parties concerned, because this is not one man's band. If we would like to do a project very much, but if the host country of the project sponsor have different views, you cannot do it, right? So now this relates to the issue of One Belt, One Road, because a lot of people ask me, some people even put it in a very, I would say, provocative way. Say, One Belt, One Road program initiated by China. This is your rulemaking by China. I said, no, that's not rulemaking. This is the program. And if we really talk about rulemaking, China makes rules with all of the countries concerned, right? So, for instance, if we are approached for a project, our professionals will look at the viability, feasibility. We will at least look at three basic requirements.
What are they?
The first is financial sustainability. Whether they would be profitable or loss-making, okay? We do not aim at profit maximization, but it must be profitable. Otherwise, the bank will not be sustained. Second, environmentally friendly. We are not going to leave a heavy footprint in environmental ecosystems if we do a project in a particular country. And thirdly, the last but not the least, socially acceptable. You cannot do a project in a community when people have serious concerns. The concerns may be misguided, you have to explain them away.
Right.
The concerns may be real ones, or whether you can solve the issues, ease their concerns through engineering or technical means.
President Jin, there have been a lot of discussion about AIIB. One of it is how is it interacting with the other development banks? Of course, you got Asia Development Bank, you also got some of the world banks, which is international, and you also got new development banks, which is the development bank that has been set up with equal share by the BRICS countries themselves. So what is your relations with this?
Different institutions have different mission. For instance, the World Bank and ADB focus very much on social development, including environment, education, health, and environment protection. And we focus exclusively on infrastructure and other productive sectors. So you see, we have different missions to accomplish. But just because of the difference, we can have better opportunity of cooperation among us.
At this stage, AIIB is still not necessarily the biggest development bank, and yet you are still having co-financing project with the others. Many would ask, why we still need AIIB?
That's a very interesting question. A lot of people asked me about the same question. And you see, it's very interesting to note that when you have a new institution, the new institution must be able to meet the specific needs of the client countries, right? As I said, World Bank and ADB focus very much on environment, on poverty reduction and social programs. We do not aim at poverty reduction directly. We promote broad-based economic and social development through investment in infrastructure and other productive sectors, thereby reducing poverty. So the approaches are different. Different institutions have different approaches.
Is your approach likely to be the future approach, you think?
I don't think so. You cannot say our approach would be the future approach, everybody else would have to copy. No, you have different roles to play. To put to draw an analogy, you walk into a very nice neighborhood.
Okay.
You find two restaurants. But probably you say, hey, I would like to have a Chinese restaurant. Where is it? Here we are.
All right. With fortune cookies?
Yes.
Having said that, though, President Jin, I do want to ask you about this. What is the aspiration of AIIB? Is it one day going to become not just Asian infrastructure development bank, but rather things with a world in front of it?
The title, Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, refers to the fact that Asian countries are the originators of this institution, and Asian countries are the majority of the institution. But by the Articles of Agreement, we can support infrastructure projects in member countries which are not Asian countries, as long as the financing of these projects would be good for Asian economy. So this is actually a really international development institution serving the interests of all its member countries.
Mr. Jin, when you walk into our studio here in Hangzhou, while overlooking the West Lake, we also saw from the live feed Chinese President Xi Jinping as coming from the host country, welcoming all the leaders of the 20 economies of the G20 and also observer countries, international organizations. That really puts people with a big question mark. That is, what is China's ambition? And what about development institutions like yours? And what is likely to be related to China's future?
You see, chairing G20 is the responsibility of each and every 20 members of this forum. So it's certainly great for China to chair this meeting in Hangzhou. And I think it took place at a time after almost 40 years of opening up development. China has a lot of things to recommend itself. How we develop infrastructure, how we grow our economy, how we improve the livelihood of the people, leaving 700 million people out of poverty and another 50 million people out of poverty by 2020. So this is the achievement of China. We invite all the other member countries to come to China, and we would like to share China's development experience with them. This is my feeling as a Chinese national. As the president of the AIIB, I'm certainly very much happy to have the opportunity of listening to the instructions and of these leaders, how such a development bank can fit into the needs of the present world. How can we help promote investment and trade? And how can we promote innovative-oriented growth model, as President Xi Jinping raised yesterday? So we have a lot of things to do, and this is an opportunity for our bank to be more engaged and deeply engaged with the global economy.
President Jin, before you go, final question for you. Not long ago, I had the honor of both having exclusive interview with you and many of the other vice presidents coming from different parts of the world who are members of AIIB. And a few months have passed. I do wonder, President Jin, how is it like for you to work with all of these people coming from different parts of the world, certainly with very different cultural backgrounds and very different idea probably also about development, infrastructure, and how a development bank like Asia Infrastructure Development Bank should be run?
You know, first of all the 57 founding members share the common aspirations of promoting infrastructure.
Are you being diplomatic, Mr. Jin?
I would be saying that I always speak from my heart. And if you say I'm diplomatic, that does not mean I try to mince my words. I am diplomatic because I try to be courteous and polite, and I would like to have a very good, friendly, candid conversation. But if I do not agree with some of the points, I will be frank enough to tell you, Ms. Tian, I don't agree with you. But you know, surprisingly enough, over the last 6 months of our operation, the vice presidents and other senior members of the management have really, I would say, enjoyed working together in this institution, despite their diverse background, because we share the common aspiration to achieve development for all. Now, you may not believe it. It's so seldom we have very different views. You know,
really?
That makes my life very comfortable. That's why I could have some time to sneak into Hangzhou and talk to you.
Well, I'm sure you have many work to do here in Hangzhou to talk to many of the countries that are present here. But it's always such a pleasure, President Jin Lijuan, for being with us. And always good luck to the AIIB.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so.
Thank you.
That's all for our special coverage of the G20. If you'd like to more, you would like to visit our website, just type in World Insight CCTV News into your search engine. You'll be able to find us. You can also check out our YouTube channel. From me, Tian Wei, and everyone on the World Insight team here in Hangzhou and in Beijing. Thanks for watching. Tune in again next time for more insights from across China and around the world. Good night.